it's just like talk all the time, and then barely even listen. And I think that's what like, and then after that date, you feel like I didn't really get to know anything about that person because I was just talking shit there like the whole time.
There's a coordination that just kind of sounds so like unattractive. Like, our relationship coordinates really well, but like
because I know when you meet people in London, it's very at least from who I've met, it's quite competitive. I did find myself when I was going on dates with people from theatre that I just subconsciously compared myself to
that place. So dangerous because like from things you can find online, they found cracks in their relationship that they didn't really like, and the play is very brutal in that sense.
Because I was like tapping into acting, I literally switched and I was like, okay, let's have sex. And
okay, we're on.
Yes.
Good. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know, we are Pursued by a Dragon Theatre Company, and I think we're just going to go around and just quickly introduce ourselves. So I'm Yava. I'm a performer for Pursued by a Dragon, and I'm also a marketing assistant. Josh?
Okay. I'm Joshua Wainwright. I'm a lighting designer, performer, and various other roles whenever need be. And yeah, I don't know.
And then Toby.
Hi, I'm Toby. I am a writer / assistant director / performer / dramaturg assistant man that just does a load of different things for the company. And sometimes I even make masks, which is what happened in the last production. I just do anything. It's whatever people need me to turn my hand to.
Okay. Yeah. Pedro?
Hi, my name is Pedro. I'm a Portuguese actor / director / help if I feel like. No, I'm joking. And yeah, I'm in the film of Pursued by a Dragon. I'm mainly a performer, but I did some assistant direction for the show. We performed Camden French.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least.
And I am Bryan, and I'm just an actor.
No, that's
You're so much more, Bryan.
Performer.
Disappointing.
Devising something, I don't know, / practitioner, I don't know.
Yeah.
All of that, of course. And I'm also a Portuguese actor, working with Pursued by a Dragon since the very beginning, I guess, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're talking dating, and I don't know, I thought we could kick off with worst date.
What do I even start it?
I don't know.
These are always funny. Like I can start with mine. Like I went on my worst date was when it was clearly too early for me to start dating after a previous relationship ended, and basically I just got too drunk and then spent the rest of the evening talking about my ex, and then of course in the morning the guy just like he was just like, yeah, I think you need more time. So, and I was like, yeah, but I was like, I had too much wine. I didn't remember talking about my ex. But it was like, it was going pretty well also till, yeah. So that was like the worst one.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm still like a bit bitter about it. Like, could have gone well, but fucked it out. Yeah, but it wasn't funny. Like, I don't really have funny worst date, but that was my one.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like I have one that's like, I can't quite remember, like, I can't remember in my head who it was or anything like that. I just remember them really not liking my music taste, and that's like the quickest way to annoy me.
Yeah.
It's true.
So I really can't remember anything about the date apart from that. So whenever they mentioned that, like, oh, that sounds weird, I don't like the sound of that, that was just apparently stuck with me since then. I just completely forgot everything else about them.
Yeah.
But I've had plenty of like awkward first dates for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of it just revolves around me just vomiting words at them the whole day, because like I don't want them to feel awkward. So I kind of want to like fill the air with as much conversation as possible. because the worst thing for me is like an awkward silence, and I know I'm quite an anxious person, so like I really feel them when they happen. And I know I don't like other people feeling anxious around me, or as a result of me not being able to, you know, chill with them or vibe with them or whatever. So I know I'm very awkward on first dates. So once it gets like when we're sort of more comfortable, that's where I'm fine. I'm sure no one actually actively enjoys the first date anyway. It's just a ball of nerves.
That's funny. That's a funny thing though, because like we are so nervous about like, oh, there's not gonna be anything to talk about during first date, but then we end up like not showing up. It's just like talk all the time, and then barely even listen. And I think that's what like, and then after that date, you feel like I didn't really get to know anything about that person because I was just talking shit there like the whole time. But yeah. Don't know if Josh is done, then we go to, I don't know, any of you three?
I don't think I really have a bad experience on a date, to be honest.
Really?
I've been
cute.
No, like honestly, like I started.
That is cute.
Oh, I'm
Dating
not
is not
surprised.
really
It's
my
Bryan.
thing. No, honestly, like dating is not really my thing. I gotta be honest. And maybe I went like maybe 2-3 dates. 2 of them were with the same person. So like it was fine. Like nothing bad happened. So I actually don't have like a bad experience because I don't really go on dates.
Then not like dating isn't really your thing. So what is? That makes sense.
I don't know. I guess I'm still trying to figure out. I don't know. I prefer like to maybe if I just go out and then I want to be a priest. Like maybe if I like go out and I meet someone, I'll be happy to like introduce myself and talk to them. But maybe I've been on many dates and I don't call them dates. I don't know.
I found the best people in that like romantic sense I've ever met were true friends, or like people I already knew. They introduced me to other people, and then or these people were like always around, but just like you never saw them or like never really paid attention to, and then you're like, oh, he was always around, I just didn't see him. He's a great person. But to meet someone new just like out of nowhere, or like social media, that really that happens like almost never.
That whole mutual things recommending people to me terrifies me, because I feel like, oh, this person will be great for you, and I'm like, how do you know that?
Expectation.
And I'm gonna call you out. Pedro has done this for me once. I'm pointing downwards because that's where he is in relative.
For me, here's one.
I just this person would be like cool for you, or whatever, and then I was like, oh yeah. Obviously, I was thankful for the fact that, he was like, oh, maybe these two could work out. But like in my head, I was like, oh shit, now I have to like be on like
on that level they presented you on, like you have to be on that pedestal where they put you.
Well, we actually met, and then we had exchanged like 3 sentences, and then just did not talk to each other for the rest of the evening.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
So it wasn't like awkward. We just didn't speak to each other because we were in like quite a large group as well. We were at the National Theatre, and we were just playing like Cards Against Humanity and all that. And it was quite a large group, so I did get to meet quite a few people that were cool as well. It was just didn't really clicked with that particular person. So I just want someone that makes me feel comfortable. Without
I mean, you feel it straight away, I think. Like first that you just know. I think if you're like forcing it to not be awkward, then it's just nah. Okay.
With theatre and dating now, do you find that there's any like sort of time management you need to bear in mind? Because obviously rehearsals come here, there, and everywhere. So there's like this whole time management part of it as well. So it's not usual 9 to 5 where you have your business meetings all day and yada yada yada, and then you come home at this specific point. You have like extracurricular things, or you have late night meetings, or you have like meetings like this. Do you find that there's anything difficult about that?
I think, if I can speak now, thank you. I think it's basically because this job, as many jobs do, but this job takes some of our time, and sometimes it might, as well as useful, it might be to date someone from another job it might not be as well, because there might be some lack of understanding in terms of the schedules, or but from both parts. And I kind of always found from previous experiences that you get so like so focused in your work that you let a lot of things pass by, or sometimes the other way around too. So I've always focused, when you're in your work, be in the moment, be doing your work. But when we knew that person, before we were that person, because it's not something, okay, I'm going to work 1 week and then I'm going to spend this day with you, but I'm going to always be answering phone calls. I've always noticed that it's like, okay, I'm this week full of work, but now this moment is just hours. And it comes like, I always found, because I like to do that, and I like when people do that to me, is like throughout the day they just send you text out, "Oh, you're right, love you," if you're at that stage of saying that, or "How are you? I hope you're right. I see you later, kid." Blah blah. And I always found that it's tiny things that kind of put things together and are easy to bear. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like that, because what I like from my experience, I like to have my stuff going on and then just have that separated from, from another person, to like not bring all the pressures home and stuff like that. And I actually prefer to someone I am dating to not be in that field of theater arts, because sometimes they get a very good different perspective, and if you overthink or you're anxious about something, they're like, yeah, I don't get it, like why are you worried, like, and then you think, why am I worried, actually nothing to worry about. And it's like, if someone's not in the arts field, they can see it from a different perspective as well. But to have your own separate schedule and then have that time where you spend together, I think that worked the best for me in the past.
Yeah,
I think it would be. Yeah, sorry, I was about to say that if Toby wants to.
No. You finish your point first, Jeva.
Yeah, okay. I did finish.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You were going to say, Toby, can you say something, please?
Because your experience is very,
Yeah.
you and Naomi are always like, most of the projects you're involved, like you're together. So I'm just wondering, how it works for you. You have a completely different experience.
I think for me personally, I try not to see people in terms of occupation or study, because in my experience, it's not brought me anything positive or negative. It's a thing they do, and that is purely based on my own experience. So other people will find things different. I'm definitely not here to give any sort of advice on how to have a perfect utopian dating lifestyle. But like, I think that what you said, Jeva, about like, you just kind of know when someone is kind of working with you, and it kind of just, there's a coordination that just kind of sounds so like unattractive. Like, our relationship coordinates really well, but like when two people work well together, it does just kind of, it just feels like, okay, this is very natural. And that, for me, I found it just comes from personality. And I think, so for context, for people watching who don't know me, maybe, I don't know who's watching this, my girlfriend also works in the same field as us. She's worked in this company before. We've studied with her, so she's in a lot of the projects I'm doing creatively. We work alongside each other a lot. I think in many ways I probably am a bit lucky, and so is she, because I wouldn't ordinarily say to people, that's a great idea, work with that person all the time, because I think everyone is very, very different. And even I wouldn't have really expected that, years ago I could work in this context, because I think I would have found that tricky in itself. But it really, like I say, it comes down to personality. I think in terms of personality, myself and my girlfriend are very similar, and I guess we kind of work with each other's moods and qualities quite nicely, in a way that means that we can be creative together and then come home and put that kind of creative stuff aside and just be, a couple. and just kind of be, and I think also, I really, it sounds so cringe, but I really would say that like me and Naomi are like, we're best friends, like 100%.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that kind of ties all that together. So as well as like whatever strategy you come up with to like work with or not work with your significant other in an occupation sense, that I think it's really important you're just really good friends with them. I don't think I can stress that enough.
I agree.
Because I think for me, again, it's all coming from me, and I really am not the most experienced person when it comes to all this, but I think it has to go beyond like what you would expect from the basics of a relationship to also just like, if you're hanging out with them and you are at one end of the room writing an essay and they're over there like, I don't know, doing their own thing, that you can be like we've already said about like the fear of silence on a first date, and I so feel that, but you can be quiet for like an hour and then like start talking again. It doesn't feel weird because you're just doing your own thing, and you know, you just really care about each other, and you're able to be in the same space as each other and cohabit it without, I don't know, without it kind of suddenly feeling awkward at the drop of a pin. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing, we're all so different as human beings, so it's so individual. I think that's why it's really hard to give like blanket advice on anything to do with this. But I do think I do think, as people have said, if you work in a creative job or the creative industry, and if your significant other doesn't, then you know, I think most people will be understanding of it, but there are probably going to be issues with like getting used to that, which I'm sure you can surpass. But I mean, even from my perspective, with a girlfriend who also works doing similar things that I'm doing, or even in the same projects I'm doing, there, you know, there've been times where it's like, oh, this week sucks, I've barely seen you and stuff, and it does suck, but like you can work past it. And I don't know.
I found that I've very rarely dated people within my kind of field. I've had like a couple of dates in the past where, you know, I've had the odd date with someone that does theatre or someone that does music or something like arts related. I think there's just something about my personality and the way that I kind of express myself in theatre and in art that seems to differ a lot with other artists, at least the ones I've come across. So I know some of them that I've come across, they're more career orientated with whatever they're doing, whereas I'm a little bit more expressionate and less focused on, I want to reach this point by the age of 25 or something. I kind of like, since this whole pandemic started, I've had a lot of obviously time to think, and I'm kind of a little bit more go with the flow with it, I guess. I'm more like open to the idea of just doing lots of fringe theatre because that makes me happy. I think when I've seen like more upper tier, I guess I'll call it, shows, so like your sort of higher fringe or West End kind of area venues, whatever, I know that there's a lot of stress that goes behind that, and I'm like thinking to myself truly and deeply, do I want to go that far? Because I know that what I'm doing now is fulfilling me now, but I don't know if, you know, what I'm doing now will fulfill me in 5 years. So if this is a very different topic.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It does tie in though. So
yeah, I'm finding myself at odds with those kind of people. There we go. Just in the basics, like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing workshops, you're doing this, and do this, and I'm like, no, and I don't really want to yet. If I have the actual drive, if I actually have the drive to, then I will. But I know that since this is all started, I've kind of forgotten, like until now, that I had other interests. So I kind of been really honing in on German like quite a lot because it was something that brought me a lot of joy. Just learning a new language. I've always really enjoyed linguistics. But then I've had those kind of conversations where I'm like, oh yeah, I really enjoy language. And like, then they're like, I thought you enjoyed theatre. I'm like, yeah, I do.
You can enjoy more than one thing, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's. I know people in our industry are very, very career orientated, and there's something admirable about that kind of ambition that they have. It's just, I know as a person, I'm not that straight ahead, if that makes sense. I kind of like to explore what I come across as it goes along. I remember having a conversation with Bryan semi-recently about the idea of wanting to travel, just because, you know, I have this like interest in other cultures and languages. It would be perfect for me to actually explore that through doing something else, and then I could maybe meet someone there rather than kind of coming across the same people, because I know when you meet people in London, it's very at least from who I've met, it's quite competitive. I did find myself when I was going on dates with people from theatre that I just subconsciously compared myself to them and where they were, and sort of parallel to where I was. So I feel like if I were to, you know, my ideal person, if that exists, obviously it doesn't, but what I would like at the moment, I guess, is someone that isn't in my field, just because they can offer a different experience. And I guess that's what I'm looking for at the moment, which is why this
that's what I meant as well. Because in the past, just after me and my boyfriend at the time graduated from high school, we were both trying to get into the same theater academy, and that preparation for it, like, really made a big influence. Like, it created some kind of distance where it's like, you know, I'm preparing for my audition, you're preparing for yours, and then we're like, we have to like look after ourselves, but then at the same time we kind of have to support each other. And it was so difficult because I was like, I need to be a bit selfish right now, but at the same time I need to support him. And then when he got in and I didn't, I was like, I have to be upset. I mean, I don't have to be upset, but I feel upset about me not getting in. And then he got in and I was like, oh, congratulations. And then go and cry in the corner because I didn't get in. And then, you know, and now I have to see my, like, you know, the most important person in my life seeking his dream when my dream is the same and I cannot do it, but I have to be happy for him because he's doing it. But then at the same time, I'm not. So it was like, it was so bad. Like, you know, it affected our relationship, of course. But that's why, I mean, at school, it was fine because we were going to, you know, after school drama thing. And then, you know, at that time, it was all fun and games because we just had to do a play and that was it, you know, rehearsals, everything. But then when it comes to the next step, like higher education and stuff, it gets really tough. That's why I found it easier afterwards to date someone who wasn't doing theater, just because, like Josh said, that feeling of competition, like, depends what you want to do. But yeah, that was really toxic for me. Like, I hated it. At the same time, I loved the person, but I hated that feeling of, you know, that dual of like, I'm happy, but, you know, I'm happy for you, but I'm not doing well myself. So it was just a mind fuck.
Yeah. I've had a few experiences with long distance relationships as well, which is kind of fitting given this context. I've had like a few, I think my first ever, I guess, official relationship, even though we never actually saw each other, was when I was like 16. And this is when I was still in the closet. So this is how long ago this was. It was like with some guy from America, from like Connecticut, and basically we share the same music taste, which is how, you know, conversation was pretty natural there. We were both quite anxious as people and all of that. And it was nice to have that thing to bond over, especially because I know that not a lot of people like my music taste. So when I find someone that, you know, has something that like, oh, I've heard of that, or oh, I like a couple of their songs, I kind of like immediately spring attack them as like, hey, listen to this song and this song, this song, I love this, blah, blah, blah. So I know that like when it comes to dating, it can be a thing of, oh, you do theatre, so do I, and then naturally you talk about the things you've done. Then you'll end up naturally comparing each other in the process, which is kind of like, since I met this person through video making, we both made the same type of videos. We eventually compared each other's videos to each other as well. So I know that that's definitely something that can impact your relationship if that happens, which shouldn't be the case. You should be, supportive of each other, but I feel like humans are very jealous at the best of times.
We are selfish we're selfish in our nature, so it's,
Yeah.
But then you also, if you love very strongly, it's different. That's why I found it so difficult. Like, I don't even.
Yeah, I think that there is something in that sense, and this is a story that I always remember. I'll go out of it a bit, which is about, in terms of comparing to each other, is in a way also not letting the work come in between you, especially if you work together. And I like this story, but this was not like a dating relationship. This was a marriage relationship. It was the two very big actors in the 70s, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. They were a couple, and did a lot of movies. They did Dr. Faustus. They did loads of movies, and then they were asked to play George and Martha in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a play about a marriage breaking down. After the movie was done, they divorced. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's when the movie is brilliant, and they're both brilliant in it. But it's just like it's such, in that term, the material can be so dangerous, and that play is so dangerous, because like from things you can find online, they found cracks in their relationship that they didn't really like, and the play is very brutal in that sense. There's lines that they say to each other that say, "I'm going to kill you," and it's very hard in that sense, and also plays with mind games as well. So I think if you're not able to separate that sort of really intensive situation from your actual situation, what you wake up, you're thinking about that, or especially these things, how there's so many theater classes out there, so many practitioners that say, bring your whole self into the part and bring your whole self into it. And sometimes it's just bullshit, because you can't. Otherwise, you go to an unsafe area. And this is, we love this, but at the end, this is our job. It's not our personal life. You can definitely, and you bring a lot of yourself into the work that you make, but you need to have boundaries in a sense. Otherwise, your mental health is much more important than everything, and also the person you love. So yeah, there's definitely something to say about, okay, this is someone else's experience, and this is not our experience, and everything should kind of be handling quite carefully. Because it's back to the business of method acting. If you don't find a sort of line that divides, it can be really hurtful, and we have many cases in the world that method acting went wrong. So yeah.
Kind of continuing a little bit off of something you kind of mentioned there, it's like having intimacy on stage while being in a relationship or feeling things for the person you're acting with. That's a very complicated feeling that I feel like we could do well to sort of touch upon a little bit there.
Can I just make a really quick point?
Yeah.
Just because what Pedro's rightly said there, and what you've just said, linked to one like really important thing, which is when you are a performer, particularly in theatre, because you have to do it live in front of people repeatedly with so much preparation and improvisation, or whatever, however the director decides to get you to explore the character. You even though, as Pedro absolutely rightly says, you need to, in line with, while the director has a responsibility to keep you safe, but you also need to keep yourself safe if the director is working in a way that kind of puts you in a place that isn't so safe.
Oh yeah.
But inherently, however you go about it, acting is one of the most, I would argue, one of the most vulnerable things you could ever do as a, well, one of the most emotionally vulnerable things you could ever do as a job. I'm not talking about like physical vulnerability. Obviously some performance carries physical risks, but in terms of like actually like I am pretending to be this person, and they think this, and they love this person, or they hate this person, or whatever. And it is very hard sometimes, depending on the potency of the script or what you see in a character or what you found out about them, to even with the best of your ability to completely not be affected by the things you're doing on stage. And I'm sure every single one of us in this call has had a performance that we've done where afterwards we're like, Jesus Christ, like that broke me. And like you just need to sleep or something afterwards, or you have a genuine come down after a run of a show because you've put your emotions into this kind of perspex box that you open at 7:30 every evening, and then you're like, okay, they're gone. I'm in a safe place now. But you're kind of not, because you're kind of exploiting your ability to portray these things, which as actors you get trained to be very good at doing that. But the trouble is that, it's very hard not to be, it's really hard to act and not be in touch with your emotions. I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
What Josh is saying about having like an actual attraction to someone on stage is totally natural when you're already exposing all this stuff to use in this calculated manner. I don't know. I think it can happen to anyone, no matter how hard you prepare, how careful you are, because it's just like an inherent risk of what you do as an actor. I think that's just worth thinking about, like with whatever we talk about going forward. But
I think. Sorry, I'll just say something quickly. I think by totally agreeing what Toby says is that you really need, I think especially when you're in a relationship that kind of, let's say, really works, it's sometimes, when you do improvs or when starting a process, it's very sometimes automatic, and what you know what to say and you know what not to say. So how far you can go, and that can still be impulsive. Wherein, like, for example, I had experience of having to do an improv exercise or a project with someone that I had a previous relationship with, and at that time we were not in a relationship. And it was very important for me before we go into the exercise, to take 2 minutes and ask, okay, what's all right to say and what's not all right to say. And the situation was involving a couple who was having a fall down in their relationship. So it's like, okay, what can I say? What can I mention? What am I allowed to do? And what I'm not, because there's always that fear of someone walking out of the room when it gets a bit too close to their heart. And it also goes for when, because we have to be so vulnerable all the time. When you're in an audition and they just give you, they don't give you, that's a weird term, but they put you with someone in the room and okay, now do this scene, and you have to get quite intimate. I always found very useful to say, if physical intimacy is required, I was like, okay, where am I allowed to touch, or where am I not allowed to touch? Because sometimes the adrenaline makes you take certain assumptions that are not right, and it can cause some damage. So it's always worth kind of checking in, because sometimes you'd even feel safer to play, because the danger of not knowing what to do can put you down as well. And I thought that before, but that was it.
I know I've had my share of theatre crushes before. Basically, we all know who my first one was, and that was our lovely Bryan here. Basically, it all started clap, yada yada. I mean, it was just a case of I genuinely had not seen Bryan before that first rehearsal. So, and then he came and I was like, oh, fuck. And then we had to do what we had to do. And it was definitely hard for me having to like regulate it, because obviously I was fighting an internal battle of, I didn't know Bryan well enough yet to be able to be like, here's this, deal with it. And there's just like, another side, just keep it to myself until it's like appropriate to talk about. So there's definitely like these inner battles. I know, like, depending on the person, one person be like, you can just tell me if it's fine. Like, obviously, if I do feel the same way, I do. If I don't, I don't. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but other people might be made really uncomfortable if, you have to be intimate on stage and you'll know that this person's like, if you were to think of it quite maliciously, like basically getting off of the intimacy that you two are sharing on stage, it's like a sort of way in that shouldn't be a way in. So it really, really depends on the person that you're doing that with. But there's also another side of things. If you're in an actual relationship with someone that's outside of the rehearsal room, that's going to be seeing it, and you're being intimate with someone else on stage. So like, let's say your boyfriend or girlfriend comes to a show, and then in the show they see that you kiss someone else. I know in the past that there's people that have had to like settle down anything that's going on, and they're like feeling anything rising just because of the fact that like they're kissing someone else. Why is that happening? Obviously they know why it's happening, it's part of the piece, but it's nonetheless still quite jarring to see, and it's like very, very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, but it comes, with its own advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I don't think I would get upset if someone was, acting and then they would kiss her. I mean, it would be probably a bit uncomfortable. But then I'm thinking, if I was in a relationship and then I would have to be intimate on stage with someone else, I would, it's just, as Pedro said, it's our job at the end of the day. So unless you feel like really uncomfortable, then, you tell the director. I personally like how we work in that sense with like intimacy and stuff, because we always establish boundaries beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And we never really had someone, leaving the room being like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. We had things with other things when it was more like emotional, but when it comes to intimacy, I think, because Bryan was mentioned. I don't know if he wanted to add anything.
Yeah, go ahead. Mention things.
Sorry. No,
Tell
I was
your
just gonna say,
story.
I actually like wrote down sex scene with Josh from Feeling Lonely at Parties. Something to talk about here, because like I found it really interesting, and it comes down to what Josh was saying, that it might become tricky when there are actually true feelings involved between the two people. Because when we were asked by Yusuf to, I don't know if it was Yusuf or Pedro actually, but okay, one of the directors asked us to come up with the scene which could be interpreted as we are having sex.
I think it was
Yusuf for sure.
And in that,
I love Yusuf. I love Yusuf.
Love Yusuf. And in that rehearsal, I noticed, I think I have a kind of an easy way to tap into acting. And what I mean by this is, I know that when I'm supposed to be acting, I'm really okay with letting go stuff and being vulnerable. Whereas if I'm actually being the real me, you guys know that I'm very socially awkward sometimes. But I felt like on that rehearsal that we had to come up with a sex scene, I think at the time I already knew, or I had talked with Josh about him having feelings for me, or I kind of, I think it was before that, but I think I kind of knew that you had feelings for me, something like that. Possibly because someone told me, or because I'm not that stupid. Because I am most of the time. I am most of the time. And it was like when we started like coming up with material, and we started like doing this by just making up some like some kind of like movement sequence. And like, as I was saying, because I was like tapping into acting, I literally switched and I was like, okay, let's have sex. And
I think
that was like
in the trailer.
Yeah.
But then I was like, that was probably like the first time where I felt a bit weird, even though I was acting and it was like pretending. Like there were actually true feelings involved that I knew they were involved. So I remember that thinking that maybe if I was doing this with someone else, it would be easier. But because it's with Josh, like I don't want to hurt his feelings, or I don't want to do something that just might make him think something else. So that was like really tricky. It was like when I was probably like the first time where I was like, how do I like draw a line here between what is real and what is not? That was like one of the first times, because it gets personal even if you don't want to.
Yeah. To clarify for those watching, that whole meme message is very much sorted.
I have a crush on you, Josh.
Look
I don't have. I
how
don't have.
tables have turned.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
If there was a better time to announce that, Brian, I
Yeah.
don't know, actually, no, that was the best time to announce it when loads of people are watching.
To the whole of the internet.
I'm single, people,
yeah, you very much
but I'm
are.
okay. Don't come at me.
I am single too. This is the longest I've been single since I was 15. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Like, I don't mind it, but I don't mind it because I enjoy my own company like so much. It's just, I mean, I can be alone. It's just I don't want to anymore. Like, it's just,
I don't know. Like I was gonna come to that point when Josh was saying something, and then Pedro told that story, and I was gonna say something in between. About exactly that. I personally prefer, like, I don't have a lot of probably I'm one of the most inexperienced people here when it comes to dating, but I feel like I do prefer to like be outside of the circle of the people who are dating or are in relationships. I prefer like to be observing and like take my time and just like, I don't know. I prefer that. And I know what you were saying is true about like when you meet someone you feel it's right. I definitely believe that. And I think you just make things work whether they are working on the same field or not, whether like, I don't know, I think you just make it work because you feel it's right. But I think I prefer like, at least for now, being on the outside. And I don't know if it's because I'm an actor, but I think we have this need of like finding ourselves, which is a bit of a cliche for our generation of like you need to take the time to find yourself. But I think it is true, especially for us. Like you need to know what really makes you happy and what level of fame or success you want to achieve or where you want to be within the industry. And I think it's really important to take that time. And I think a lot of people can do it with someone else on their side, but I think I prefer doing that on my own. So I think that's maybe why I don't really go into dating that much.
okay. I think that's a perfect note to start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
If someone else wants to say something else.
We still got like 10 or so minutes left if you want to keep going.
Yeah.
I think I want to say, and I think this already finishes what some of the people said. Going back to the company, a great thing that it was not forceful, but happened throughout Filling Young Parties, which is a project we did, is that this is amazing because throughout the story, and for the people who watched it, there's couples falling in love with each other, and it's a journey through that sort of those relationships. But then, for example, me, Ivani and Rebecca, who are also characters in the play, we were seen as characters who didn't fall in love with each other, and we have different objectives and purposes, which was to control the ones falling in love. It was fun to play. But even when we started building on another improvisations for a new project that we might be doing, the cards switched for me. So I remember that sort of improv that me and Bryan had to play a gay couple to start exploring scenes with LGBT community and adoption and all that. And I felt very safe with Bryan playing the scene because he also gave me that confidence. But I think that was sort of the not forceful process of throughout the months we've all worked together, that we feel we absolutely trust each other, if that makes sense. So we are able to switch, and we are not as afraid now of harming each other in the scene or loving each other in the scene or doing certain things, because all of us, we found out we are extremely playful and we delve a lot from each other, and that really includes our listening and trust. So that's something I really like about this group, because I know if we were going to go into a scene now in improvisation, it would be quite fluid, whatever the outcome would be. So yeah, that was cool.
I'd like to add one more little short topic before we like set things up. I want to talk a little bit about assumptions made about us as artists or as theatre makers when it comes to dating other people.
That's nice.
Can you
I like
quote
that.
Shakespeare at me? All that stuff.
Would you like me to be a Romeo?
This is the one I hate the most. That your relationship is toxic. People think your relationship is toxic. You must do your art and be so focused, and then hurt each other, and then after hurting each other you're so temperamental that you just have to have sex with each other, and it's no, it's not how that works. I mean,
it's actually much more calm. It's not that eventful. Being in a relationship with an artist is actually less eventful than one would expect. Nothing happens. We're tired.
It's really boring. It's so dull. Oh.
We just drink tea and read books. We don't do anything else.
Yeah, no. Definitely don't go to pubs after rehearsals. No, that stuff.
Yeah. Another one is that we love to smoke weed with each other.
I don't.
Really. I mean,
I've never had that one before.
You like to take drugs with each other. I mean, this comes a lot from many couples who were found who kind of joined together from the rock and pop culture.
Okay.
From the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that the relationships were seen as very toxic and sometimes how movies portray it, that they're always smoking weed with each other and they're hurting each other with, for example, 50 Shades of Grey. I'm sorry, it's an awful movie. So you're more than free to disagree. It's absolutely fine.
High quality example.
I love the sex part.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, sometimes it's. I feel it's not that way, but hey,
it's not. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, but it's also not. Whatever is the opposite of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
I know something that I've had assumed about me a lot is that I'm quite, not it's kind of obvious, really, but dramatic. I get, obviously, since you do theatre, you're gonna know how to heighten things a lot. But I know that when it comes down to things, I'm just kind of more I feel like once people get out of it, a lot of us are just kind of we kind of get to let go after that. I know sometimes I've had the assumption that I'm going to be on all the time, I have to be proper preppy, you got to keep that energy up, and I'm like, that's not me.
For first 2 days, yeah. I mean, I told you already what happened with feeling lonely at parties. For me, I left emptier and emptier after every performance, but Yusuf was like, your performance is getting much better, and I'm like, that's not how I feel, Yeah.
I wonder if we'll have podcasts where we don't mention Flap, because that was 50% of last podcast.
Yeah.
And that is us.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, go ahead, Toby. Go ahead.
No, I really didn't have a point. I was just making vocalization. It's fine.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't really experience it myself, but I guess it comes a lot from TV shows and stuff like that. That actors need a lot of attention. I mean, in real life.
Leave us alone. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I know.
It is the Marilyn Monroe stigma. Yeah.
I didn't know you call it that way, but yeah.
I think. Oh no, you go first, Pedro.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. No. It's just of course, Marilyn Monroe was an amazing actress. She was a great, great woman, and it was quite a feminist symbol. But people normally see her as dumb and always craving for attention. Is that what annoys me? They're always craving for attention of, oh, she was the one who tricked President Kennedy in falling in love with her, and then tricking his brother into falling in love with her, and then she killed herself. Which actually, what if the story is the other way around? Why are those conventions in place? And people kind of refer back for her being dumb and getting out with everyone, and that's another stigma that's portrayed into the artists.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean that artists don't need attention. I mean, that's kind of a reason why we're doing what we're doing, but it depends what kind of attention, I guess. if it's, you know, networking after the show and that kind of stuff, then yes, that's the right kind of attention. But
I was saying more like in a relationship, because I feel like
that in that sense, I think it's not true.
What were you gonna say, Toby and Bryan?
No,
Bryan, do you want to go first?
I was just gonna say, like, agreeing with you, but I feel like, because I was more saying this in a real life relationship kind of point of view, that like I just feel like everyone does need their share of attention, and everyone needs their share of quiet and personal space.
Yeah, that comes back to Toby saying, like, how can you just like not talk for hours and then, you know, just start talking out of nowhere, and it's natural, it's okay. So I think for me it's the best feeling when I can be quiet with someone, instead of you just, you know, like, just to not have silence. Like it's okay to being quiet together, like, just as good.
What were we gonna say before, Toby?
I mean, Bryan's kind of said it quite nicely there, but I think there's the stereotype that like actors or just arty types have a need for that kind of attention and self-fulfillment and whatever, and they've got an ego on the surface. But you will find those types in every aspect of life. And that is because I firmly believe, and I'm sure there will be studies that will prove this, I can't cite any now, but I'm fairly certain I've heard it said before as a fact that, I mean, we all have egos, right? Every single human being has an ego. So it's simply a question of how you keep yours in check, or how yours works with your personality. And if you do something for a living, like acting, where it appears that you are putting your ego further forward because you want that kind of, look at me, then maybe people will critique you for it more. But it should be said as well, as I'm sure you guys will agree, that some people do things like acting, not really because of the response, but more because of the exploration and the experience of losing yourself in a story or a character. But the problem is that, like Bryan says, everyone likes a bit of attention sometimes. It's part of being human. So it's quite in many ways, okay, some people wear it on their sleeve a bit more, and that's their choice entirely, but it is quite an empty, sometimes I think it can seem like quite an empty criticism. It's like, you're an actor, you're seeking attention. It's like, yes, that's pretty much part of what I do as a job.
You have child trauma.
Yeah, but this is not all fun and games that it might seem, you know, because sometimes you do, you know, you go to rehearsal, you do improv, you do like exploration and stuff, and you sometimes find out something about yourself that you don't necessarily like, and you have to deal with it, and you have to go home, have a glass of wine, and deal with it. Like it's you know, you have to, and you know, and this is, it's not like traumatizing, but it has its own bit, and you know, when it comes to like mental health and stuff, and that's why artists might be seen as a bit more crazy, but because they might know a bit more about themselves, and that's like quite a psychological thing, I think.
Should we wrap it up there then?
Yeah,
wrap it up.
I think it was very good.
Yeah,
I had fun.
Yes, we shall do this every week for as ever long as we wish to keep this going. So it'll be released every Tuesday until, you know, they stop. And there'll be different people. Maybe we'll bring some guests in, and we're discussing all sorts of different topics. So I shall see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Whoop-de-doo.